Raj Raghunathan's book If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? Provides a unique perspective on happiness and success. The book offers an insightful analysis of the relationship between intelligence, success, and happiness, and provides practical advice for achieving greater happiness in life. The author argues that while intelligence and success are important factors in achieving happiness, they are not sufficient on their own. He explains that many intelligent and successful people suffer from a lack of happiness because they focus too much on external factors such as wealth, status, and recognition, and neglect their internal well-being. Raghunathan suggests that happiness is not a destination but a journey, and that it can be cultivated by developing certain habits and behaviors. He outlines 10 habits of happy people, including living in the present moment, practicing gratitude, nurturing social relationships, and focusing on personal growth. One of the key insights of the book is that happiness is not a zero-sum game. In other words, the happiness of one person does not come at the expense of another. This idea runs counter to the prevailing belief that success is a competition and that we must strive to outdo others to achieve happiness. Instead, the author argues that happiness is a shared resource and that we can all benefit from each other's happiness. Raghunathan also explores the concept of hedonic adaptation, which refers to the tendency of humans to adapt to positive and negative experiences over time. He explains that this adaptation can lead to a decrease in happiness over time, and suggests that we can counteract it by engaging in activities that provide novelty, challenge, and variety. The author also delves into the role of values in happiness. He argues that having a clear set of values and living in accordance with them is crucial for happiness. He provides a framework for identifying personal values and aligning our behavior with them. Overall, If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? Is a thought-provoking and insightful book that challenges common beliefs about the relationship between intelligence, success, and happiness. It offers practical advice for cultivating happiness in our lives and provides a new perspective on what it means to be truly successful. In the first chapter, Raghunathan challenges the notion that intelligence and success lead to happiness. He acknowledges that there is some correlation between these factors and happiness, but argues that it is not a direct one. He introduces the idea of hedonic adaptation, which is the tendency for humans to adapt to positive and negative experiences over time. This adaptation can cause a decrease in happiness over time, even in the face of positive life changes. Raghunathan also argues that happiness is a journey, not a destination, and that we must actively cultivate it in our lives. This involves developing habits and behaviors that promote happiness, such as practicing gratitude and mindfulness. Chapter 2, The Hedonic Treadmill and Why It Keeps You from Being Happy. In the second chapter, Raghunathan discusses the concept of the hedonic treadmill. This refers to the idea that humans are always striving for more pleasure and avoiding pain, and that this constant pursuit can lead to a decrease in happiness over time. He explains that people adapt to their current level of pleasure and seek even greater levels, creating a cycle of never-ending desire. Raghunathan argues that the key to breaking out of the hedonic treadmill is to pursue intrinsic goals, which are goals that are aligned with our values and interests, rather than extrinsic goals such as money, fame, and status. Pursuing intrinsic goals can help us find fulfillment and happiness that is not dependent on external factors. Chapter 3, The Importance of Pursuing Intrinsic Goals. In the third chapter, Raghunathan expands on the concept of intrinsic goals and why they are important for happiness. He describes intrinsic goals as those that are aligned with our values, interests, and sense of purpose. Examples of intrinsic goals include personal growth, meaningful relationships, and community involvement. Raghunathan contrasts these with extrinsic goals, which are those that are focused on external rewards such as money and social status. He argues that pursuing intrinsic goals can lead to greater happiness and fulfillment, while pursuing extrinsic goals can lead to disappointment and a sense of emptiness. Raghunathan encourages readers to identify their own intrinsic goals and work towards achieving them. Chapter 4 of If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? by Raj Raghunathan is titled How Your Personality Traits Impact Your Happiness. In this chapter, Raghunathan explores the relationship between personality traits and happiness. He begins by introducing the big 5 personality traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Raghunathan explains that these traits are relatively stable over time and across situations, and that they are each comprised of several sub-traits. Raghunathan then delves into the research on how these personality traits are related to happiness. He notes that people who are high in openness, conscientiousness, and agreeableness tend to be happier than those who are low in these traits. People who are high in neuroticism, on the other hand, tend to be less happy. Raghunathan explains that people who are high in openness are more likely to seek out new experiences and have a greater sense of curiosity, which can lead to greater happiness. People who are high in conscientiousness tend to be responsible, organized, and self-disciplined, which can help them achieve their goals and experience greater happiness. People who are high in agreeableness tend to be compassionate, cooperative, and empathetic, which can lead to greater social support and happiness. However, Raghunathan cautions that personality traits are not the only factors that determine happiness. He notes that personality traits can be influenced by external factors such as upbringing, culture, and life experiences, and that they are not fixed and unchangeable. People can work to develop or strengthen certain personality traits through effort and practice, which can in turn lead to greater happiness. Chapter 5: The Paradox of Control. In Chapter 5 of If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? By Raj Raghunathan, the author explores the paradox of control. The paradox of control is that the more we try to control things, the less control we actually have. Raghunathan explains that while we may feel like we are in control of our lives, there are many things that are outside of our control, such as other people's actions, natural disasters, and the passage of time. The author argues that the key to happiness is not necessarily having control over everything, but rather accepting the things that are outside of our control and focusing on the things that we can control. He suggests that we can cultivate happiness by adopting a growth mindset and focusing on personal growth, rather than trying to control external circumstances. Raghunathan also recommends practicing mindfulness and meditation to help us become more aware of our thoughts and emotions and to develop a greater sense of acceptance. Chapter 6: The Paradox of Choice. In Chapter 6 of If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? Raghunathan discusses the paradox of choice, which is the idea that having more choices does not necessarily lead to greater happiness or satisfaction. He explains that while we may think that having more options will make us happier, in reality, too much choice can be overwhelming and lead to decision fatigue. The author suggests that one way to overcome the paradox of choice is to focus on our values and priorities. By knowing what is most important to us, we can narrow down our choices and make decisions that align with our goals and desires. Raghunathan also encourages us to practice gratitude and appreciate what we have, rather than constantly seeking out new things. Chapter 7: Nurturing Relationships. In Chapter 7 of If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? Raj Raghunathan focuses on the importance of nurturing relationships in order to achieve happiness. He argues that while social connections are a fundamental human need, many people neglect them in favor of pursuing other goals such as career success or material possessions. Raghunathan notes that studies have consistently shown that people who prioritize relationships are happier and more fulfilled than those who do not. Raghunathan provides several strategies for building and maintaining meaningful relationships. One important strategy is to be fully present when spending time with loved ones, rather than allowing distractions such as smartphones to interfere with the experience. He also emphasizes the importance of expressing gratitude and appreciation for the people in our lives, and of being willing to forgive and apologize when necessary. Another key strategy is to cultivate empathy and understanding towards others, particularly when conflicts arise. Raghunathan notes that it can be helpful to try to see the situation from the other person's perspective, and to approach the situation with kindness and compassion rather than defensiveness or anger. Finally, Raghunathan emphasizes the importance of fostering a sense of community and belonging. This can involve participating in group activities, volunteering, or simply reaching out to others in small ways on a regular basis. By prioritizing relationships and cultivating a sense of connection with others, Raghunathan argues, we can significantly increase our overall level of happiness and well-being. Chapter 8, Finding Meaning in Life. In Chapter 8 of If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? Raj Raghunathan explores the concept of finding meaning in life. He argues that while happiness is often equated with pleasure or the absence of negative emotions, true fulfillment comes from pursuing goals and activities that are personally meaningful. Raghunathan suggests that individuals can identify their own sources of meaning by reflecting on their values, interests, and passions, and by considering how they can contribute to the world in a positive way. He also notes that the pursuit of meaning often involves facing challenges and setbacks, but that these experiences can ultimately lead to greater personal growth and satisfaction. Chapter 9, The Pursuit of Happiness. In Chapter 9 of If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? Raj Raghunathan explores the concept of the pursuit of happiness. He argues that while many people assume that happiness is something that can be pursued directly, research suggests that this approach is often counterproductive. Raghunathan notes that people who actively strive for happiness may become overly self-focused and anxious, and may neglect other important aspects of their lives. Instead of pursuing happiness directly, Raghunathan suggests that individuals should focus on cultivating the psychological characteristics that are associated with happiness, such as gratitude, kindness, and mindfulness. By developing these traits, individuals may find that happiness emerges naturally as a byproduct of their daily experiences and interactions. Raghunathan also notes that the pursuit of happiness can be hindered by various psychological biases, such as the tendency to compare oneself to others or to overestimate the impact of external events on one's well-being. To overcome these biases, Raghunathan suggests strategies such as practicing mindfulness and gratitude, focusing on intrinsic rather than extrinsic goals, and cultivating a sense of purpose and meaning in life. Chapter 10, The Limits of Happiness. In the final chapter of If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? Raj Raghunathan explores the limits of happiness. He notes that while happiness is an important aspect of well-being, it is not the only one, and that individuals may experience a range of emotions throughout their lives. Raghunathan argues that it is important to acknowledge and accept negative emotions, rather than trying to suppress or avoid them. Raghunathan also notes that the pursuit of happiness can sometimes lead to negative consequences, such as a focus on personal pleasure at the expense of others, or a preoccupation with status and material possessions. He suggests that individuals can avoid these negative outcomes by cultivating traits such as compassion, empathy, and self-awareness. Finally, Raghunathan emphasizes the importance of recognizing the interconnectedness of all living beings, and of working towards the greater good rather than solely focusing on personal happiness. He notes that by cultivating a sense of empathy and connection with others, individuals can increase their own happiness while also contributing to the well-being of those around them. Overall, If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? Provides a comprehensive exploration of the factors that contribute to happiness and well-being, and offers practical strategies for cultivating these traits in daily life. By emphasizing the importance of traits such as gratitude, mindfulness, and compassion, and by encouraging individuals to focus on personal meaning and purpose, Raghunathan offers a refreshing perspective on the pursuit of happiness. If you like If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? You may also like The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. This book explores the science of happiness and offers practical advice for achieving greater well-being. Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. This book examines the concept of flow, a state of complete absorption in an activity that is often associated with happiness and fulfillment. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. This book offers guidance for living in the present moment and finding peace and happiness in the here and now. The Art of Happiness by Dalai Lama and Howard Cutler. This book explores the nature of happiness from a Buddhist perspective and offers practical advice for achieving greater well-being. Authentic Happiness by Martin Seligman. This book offers an overview of the science of positive psychology and provides tools and exercises for cultivating greater happiness and well-being.